I feel very strongly about special education. There are a lot of things that there are some things that I agree with. There are also some things I do not agree with. Okay. So today I'm going to share with you everything that I know, and then you and I can have a conversation. And if you are seeing me looking, to my right, it's because I'm looking at your comments within the chat on Facebook. Okay. All right. Let's rock. So, special education, put the work in. There is a reason why I titled it Special Education, put the work in, because when your child is in special education, you need to know that it's not just a hit and run, a one and done, right? It's not a attend a meeting and we figure out what's going on and then everybody just going about their business. No, there is work that needs to be done. And so today I'm going to talk to you about that work that needs to be done. Okay. So again, I'm Dr. Deidre Stevens. I am with Impact Teaching, Training, and Leadership Development, and we help high need schools build teachers and leaders. Okay, that's what we do. So, a part of that, building teachers and building leaders, is making sure that they have the environment conducive to high performance. And part of producing or creating that environment is making sure all our parents are on point, which brings me to my parent group, Parents on Point. So if you're not in that parent group, you need to get into that parent group, because our parents who are in that group are asking some really good questions. They're getting answers and resources. And you will also be able to view these videos within the group. So if you're not in there, just go to at Parents on Point, POP. You should see a purple dot, and I want you to join the group. Okay. And then I want you to go get your friends and tell them to join the group, because I really do believe a part of changing our community, our society, is making sure that you understand how to invest in your children. All right. So that is what I am doing now under Impact Teaching, Training, and Leadership Development, which is a company I created out of the passion for high need schools and being able to work with those teachers and leaders, because we all know those environments are different, right? I have some new people who just came in. Listen, I have Richie Polo Mitchell in here. Ellen Hargett is in here. I have Mika J in here. Beatrice Bowen Savage is in here. And I have Corey Charles. And most of you have shared. If you're new, type in your name. Let me know who you are so I can give you a shout out later. Okay. Thank you all for participating. If you have not shared with your parents, make sure, or with your friends, make sure you share this live. All right. So, the first thing that we need to discuss is this. Okay. The magic of learning is time. And I'm coming from this perspective when I'm talking about education, because it's important for you to understand that it doesn't matter if a person learns a concept in 3 minutes or 3 days. It does not matter. What does matter is that they learn the concept. And I have worked with some parents who they feel like their children are not smart, maybe, and they feel like their children are not smart because they don't learn it quickly. And I really want you to think about that. Okay. First of all, let me go ahead and divulge this information. It takes me a minute to read, and I have a whole doctorate degree. Okay. I have to read out loud, and I have a whole doctorate degree. And I read out loud because I have a creative mindset and I'm always thinking about something else to do. So, in order to make sure that I'm paying attention, and this is a strategy for somebody who's watching, right? So, in order to make sure that I am paying attention to the information that I'm reading, then I have to read out loud to just capture my own attention, right? But it doesn't mean I have friends though who are able to just run through a book. I mean, turn page for page. I'm more inquisitive. I have questions and I want to find answers to those questions. As a matter of fact, I read my Bible all the time, and sometimes it takes me weeks to get through a chapter because I'm researching and I'm trying to find answers, right? So I want you to pay attention to the message that I'm trying to communicate. I don't want you to feel like just because your child or it takes your child a minute to grasp information. There are so many things going on in here that you will never know, right? So it doesn't mean that the child needs special services, right? It doesn't mean that you need to explore a special education program, right? It doesn't mean that. It just means that the child learns differently. All right. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about children learning differently later, but I do want to make sure that this concept is sealed in your mind, that the magic of learning is time. If you give anybody time, right? Most people, if you give them time, they can learn it. And I want you to throw away the concept or what you have been taught and trained, because you've been taught that if I learn it quickly, then I'm smart. As a matter of fact, sometimes our school systems aid in that, right? So if I learn it within these amount of days, then I'm smart. And if I don't, then I'm not smart and I need some help. That is not true. It is a myth, and you need to throw it away. Okay. The only thing I want you to concentrate on is learning. That's what you need to concentrate on. Are they learning the information? Okay. That's what you need to concentrate on, not how fast. We want to concentrate on whether or not they're learning, because that is the ultimate goal. Even with our teachers and our leaders in schools, we say the same thing, that it's about learning. So you should not explore special education trying to, because your child, maybe they don't make an A, but maybe they're not making an A because they need to spend more time with the text or more time with the concept. And that's okay. That's okay. So you need to speak with your teacher about being flexible with your children so that they have time to learn it. Now, because there are parameters, it means that the learning cannot only take place in school. Okay. It means learning also has to take place at home so that we can get to the goal that we have for the child by the end of the year. Okay. Because unfortunately, we do have time limits. We only have 180 some days in a school year. So, in order for us to reach that goal, it is very, very possible. Even if your child is not getting it like that, it is still possible because we have plenty of time. There's plenty of time. You just need to be creative with how you use it, right? As a matter of fact, that is how, when I go into schools that are high need schools, right? And they are in need of transformation, I go in there with hope. And I go in there with hope every single time because I know we have time. And I know that the key is finding that time. So, as a family, it might be that you need to find the time to partner with the school. Like, find time at home to also continue the learning of the child. And if you are like me, and after you get off work, you just don't feel like doing all that, listen, find you a tutor. Okay. And I told you last week, even if I had children, I would never tutor them. I would pay somebody to do it because I don't have the bandwidth, as my computer friends would say. I don't have the bandwidth. Okay. All right. So just keep that in mind, that the magic of learning is time. And as long as you give them time, they can do this. And do not be moved or persuaded because, you know, um, your child may not learn as fast. That's crazy. I'm telling you. If you learn it in 3 minutes or 3 days, you have still learned it. It doesn't matter. Okay, so throw that away. Throw that away. All right, let's rock. So let's get to the start of it, right? So the start of education is the IDEA, okay? The idea, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This is a law that makes available a free, appropriate public education to eligible children. So there is a process you have to go through in order to be considered for the special education program. And we'll get to that in a minute, right? So eligible children with disabilities throughout the nation and ensures special education and related services to those students. And the way we do that is through the special education program. Okay, so we're going to talk about what it is. It is the program that we use in order to mandate or to manifest the mandates of IDEA, right? That's how we make sure that we provide children with whatever they need is through that special education program, right? And who does it serve? So it serves students who go through the required process and they have been deemed as eligible for educational services. That's who we're serving, right? So there is a process. So we want to know what that process is. Okay. So the process includes a referral. So a referral looks like maybe you feel like your child needs to be tested, or the teacher or someone, a professional at the school, is saying, hey, I think we need to test your child to see if they qualify for the special education program. And then they start showing you student work. They start talking about, well, let's implement some strategies first. Let's get together. That's how you should do it. Okay. You should not just jump into, hey, let's submit a referral and let's go. No, there should be at least maybe 3 to 4 weeks that we've implemented some strategies to see if maybe it is that we need to add more tools before we put them in the special education program, right? Once the referral is submitted by you or by your school professional, then they're going to conduct an evaluation, okay, on your campus. That evaluation is free, okay? So if they say, yeah, we're going to conduct an evaluation and it costs $9.99, we can put you on a monthly payment plan. That is a complete lie. You should never have to pay for that in the public school system, okay? So if you're in a traditional public school or a charter school, that is free. You should not have to pay for that. Now, a private school, I can't give you a lot of information about those, but I do know traditional or charter, it is free. All right, then after the evaluation, they have what they call an IEP meeting, individual education plan meeting, right? In Texas, it is called an ARD. Don't ask me why. It took me a minute when I got here. I was like, why are y'all calling it that? Why are y'all changing up the names? I don't know. But it's an IEP meeting. And what you do is you sit down and you talk about the evaluation with a team of people. So you'll have teachers there, administrator will be there, you'll have the special education professionals there, okay, which will, the person who's there will probably be your caseworker or your case manager. Once you get on board, you may have the diagnostician there. I know here in Texas they have a diagnostician, so or whoever the lead person is in charge of special education on your campus will be there. The psychologist or the professional who conducted the evaluation would definitely be there, and you all talk about the results of this test, right? And you talk about what is needed, which is the next thing, arranging sped services. So once we decide what is needed and once we agree on what is needed, now this is what you need to know. Let's back up to the IEP meeting. You need to know that you can disagree. As a matter of fact, there have been times when I have not been invited to the special education meeting because they already knew I was not going to agree, because I do not believe or will never consent to, right? Oh, did y'all catch that? But anyway, I will never consent to um allowing my child to, or any child, to participate in a prescribed program that I know will not help them. Okay. And as a parent, you should do the same. Now, I have also been a part of special education meetings or IEP meetings where the parent was just way too demanding, and this is a touchy topic. Okay, I have to be free to tell you this information, so you're gonna have to listen. So I have also been a part of special education programs where, I'm sorry, IEP meetings, where the parents were just like way too demanding. You were asking for things that you already knew should not even be requested. And you knew it was not a part of helping your child, but you were asking for it because it's your way of trying to get assistance, but at the expense of ignoring the professionals that are in the room. Even when you are in the IEP meeting, it is okay to disagree, right? But at the end of the day, it's about what is best for the child. So everything that is recommended needs to be what is best for the child. Don't just start throwing accommodations and, oh yeah, we're going to add this and we're going to add a calculator and it's a reading disability. Like why? So we're going to add read aloud, and that's not what they need. It helps, but they don't need that, so you want to make sure that in that IEP meeting, hear me, you add things to that meeting or to that document that will help your child. That is what the meeting is for. And don't be shocked if the instruction professional or the education professional doesn't disagree or disagrees with you, but they provide another option and tell you why. Okay? It is okay that we have disagreements in those meetings, because you are bound to have disagreements because sometimes you don't agree on how to help the child, but you need to remember that we do agree that the child needs help. Okay? So once we decide what we're going to do, we arrange the SPED services. And then after those services are arranged and the teachers are aware, yada, 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 then we're good to go. And every year you're going to have a meeting to decide if the services were helpful or if we need to add some things or take away some things. Now listen, while this process, like once the process is over and your child is receiving services, it is okay for you to call another meeting. Excuse me. It is okay for you to do that and say, hey, I need to schedule another meeting. Now, let's go back to those IEP meetings, because listen, you're going to have that meeting every year and you need to be present every year. You need to be present every time there is an IEP meeting. So whatever job you get, whatever whatever activities you are involved in needs to stop when you are having an IEP meeting, because you want to make sure that you are involved in whatever is taking place. I have seen it so many times. The SPED teachers are putting together or scheduling the IEP meetings, or ARDs, as we say in Texas, right? They're scheduling these meetings and they're having trouble finding parents. They're having trouble getting them to come, you know? But this is so important. This is not a one and done. This is not something that you subscribe to and then say, oh, well, the school had. No, we don't. I'm telling you. This is a 20-year vet talking to you saying, no, we don't. We are all trying to figure out what works best for the child. And we really need your perspective in order to do that. So when they're having IEP meetings and then you're not there, and then later there's a hiccup, you're not going to have a foundation or a basis to understand why these things are taking place, right? You're just going to continue in the mindset of, well, my child is just not smart enough. I wasn't either, or whatever the case might have been. And that is totally not it. What's missing is you. What's missing is your input about the child, about them. We need you in those meetings. So don't skip out on those meetings, even if you have to do it by phone. If it's in the morning, take your lunch break in the morning or something. This is very important. That's what I'm trying to communicate, to make that change, to make sure you make those arrangements. Okay? All right. And it happens once a year. You already know. So, make sure you're there. And don't forget, anytime you want to call a meeting, you can do that. All right. All right. Let's go to next. So within the special education program, there are 13 programs and services that are offered, right? So when they're testing, there are 13 disabilities within those programs. And first one is autism. The next one is learning disability, which is very popular. I don't know why, but I'm just listen. Unless your child really does have a learning disability, that I would suggest that you use other means. But in any case, there are learning disabilities, and it does not mean that your child cannot learn. It means they learn differently, and the school is trying to position themselves so that they can figure out how they learn, which is why your perspective is important, because if we can understand sometimes the context or the background, what's going on at home, then we can take that information and create something that works, right? So you have learning disability, you have other health impaired. That means that you have some type of impairment that is affecting the learning environment, like asthma, diabetes, maybe you had leukemia, maybe attention deficit disorder. So that's what other health impaired is. It's impairments that you may have that is not necessarily doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your intellect. It's just it affects the learning environment, and we need to monitor that. So then you have deafness, intellectual disability, you have speech or language impairment, deaf and blindness, multiple disabilities. That means more than one disability, right? Then there's traumatic brain injury, emotional disturbance, visual impairment, and hearing impairment. Okay. All right. So those are the 13 disabilities, all right, that they test you for. Okay. Remember, it's when we talk about learning disability, and we're going to get into that in a minute, but it's make sure you have exhausted all measures before doing this, right? One of the things that I would like to prevent is, and I told someone about this before, but I would like to prevent students getting all the way to their senior year, right? And it's time for graduation, and we have not done what we needed to do. And I've talked about this before, but I remember being, or to get all the way to your senior year and we discover or know that you can't read, but you're going on, but because you're in this program, there are things that can be, listen, it's not about just graduation. It's about what you can do after graduation. And believe it or not, the decisions that we make throughout the K-12 education years, it does affect how they perform when they leave. Okay. So just make sure that your child really does need to be in this program. I I want to be even more transparent, but I'm gonna save that for my group. If you want to join the group, then I'll go into more detail about it in the group. But um, just keep that in mind. Make sure your children are really, and if you're in the group, I'll probably do a live after this in the group to talk about some more specific things. Okay. So let's keep it moving. I don't want to hold you long. All right. So now let's talk about what special education is not. Now, this is where, if you haven't shared yet, you need to go ahead and share, because we're about to talk about what it is not. Okay. So let me tell you, I love you and I think you're great before I even get started. But I am going to have to be a bit more transparent, okay, and a bit more honest about what special education is not. Ready? Okay, brace yourself, because I may say some things that hurt your feelings. All right, let's go. It is not a substitute for parenting. Special education is not a substitute for parenting. What do I mean by that? It means in the early years of your children, right? There are some things that you need to do to make sure that they can function well when they come to us in the public school setting. Okay, you ready? Hold on. We're coming. All right. Or as one of my cousins say, don't get nervous. Okay. What do I mean by that? I mean, if in the early years of your child's life, right? And the early years are very important because they learn so much. They have the capacity to learn so much in those early years. So you really do need to take advantage of those. So what do I mean by that? I mean, you will everyone has heard this statement, you will reap what you sow, right? Whatever you put into something, that and more will come out, right? So you have to make sure that what you are putting into your children is going to yield what you want, okay? So if you do not put into your children a love for reading, or put into your children, like read to your children, make sure your children have access to books, take them to the library when they're little, things of that sort, just teaching them how to access information. Then when they get in school, it is going to be difficult for them to put that to return that, right? And it will take them a minute. Okay. I heard a statistic, especially for minority children, it was saying that they enter into the school 5,000 words behind. Well, that's an easy fix. Now we know that we need to put in them a love for reading, right? Okay, so if we do that, then we may not experience the comprehension issues, right? We may not experience, or it may be easier to identify whether or not they do have a learning disability, because we know that we put in them the right thing. And so the right thing should be coming out, and it helps us to be able, when I say us, I mean educators, to be able to identify, okay, well, what is the issue? Here's another example. If you are putting into your children, or allowing your children not to be disciplined, right? They are able to do anything they want to do. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. Okay. You allow them to run around. You allow them to defy your expectation. You tell them one thing, but you allow them to do another thing, because in the early years it is cute, right? Well, then when they get in school and it's time to follow a set of rules, or the teacher gives them a directive and they don't follow that directive, we cannot now say they have a behavioral issue. We can't. The child was never trained to do those things. So now it's going to take a minute for the school to train them, okay? Along with all the other students. I'm coming, okay? Here's another one, right? So again, back to the discipline part. And why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I've sat in special education meetings where there's nothing wrong with the child, but the child had a label of being a behavioral child. And I knew it was not. No, the child, there was a missed opportunity earlier on in that child's life that has perpetuated to them being labeled as a behavioral child. They could very well not have a behavioral issue had we trained them a little bit better in the early years. Does that make sense? Okay. If you are, okay, here's another one. All right, guys, bear with me, okay? If there's a lot of arguing going on at the house, if the way you communicate is by speaking loudly, and it's always a combative environment, then when the child gets in the public school system or any school system, and the teacher is trying to communicate and the child speaks in an aggressive tone, it's not that the child has a behavioral issue. It's that the child's environment, the environment they're growing up in, does that. And they think it's normal. You see what I'm saying? So there are some things that we can do to keep them from receiving some of these labels. Okay. I remember being in a SPED meeting, and The child had a label for opposition defiance disorder. Now, I'm going to tell you that what that really means is disobedience, that your child is disobedient. Don't give them that label. Oppositional defiance disorder? Come on. No, teach your children expectations. Teach them that when an adult speaks, you respond appropriately. What is that appropriate response? Don't teach them right so that they'll have right to be able to choose from, if that makes sense, right? All right, I can't stay on this long, but I hope you get the point. Whatever you put in them is going to come out of them, and most of the time it comes out in school. Okay, so that's all I'm gonna say about that one. So special education is not a substitute for parenting. You still have to parent. You still have to do what you know is right to do. You still have to teach them and train them up in the way that they should go. You still have to do those things. And guess what? You still, even though they have, enrolled into the special education program, you still have to monitor the paperwork. You have to make sure that the teachers are doing what they're supposed to do in the class, that you have a close relationship with the case manager, right? That you know the case manager's name. You need to know who is the special education teacher that is monitoring your child's paperwork. This is the part of parenting that I'm talking about, right? So of course in the early years, and even not, even though your child may be in middle school, whatever, start organizing and getting them together, because when they leave, and I've seen it so many times, I've seen students enter into the program and they obtain or start developing habits that are not good for them when they get out. And some of those habits, I'm gonna have to be honest, guys, some of those habits are feeling as if they don't have to do all of the work, that they don't have to put forth all of the effort. And that's actually my next slide. So I'm going to hold out. And they develop this. And then when they graduate, they still think this way. And life is harder for them because they have been in a 13-year program that taught them they don't have to do all of that, that special adjustments will be made for them. Listen, you have to get them ready for not just graduation. You have to get them ready for what they're going to do after graduation. Okay? How, not for survival. You have to prepare them to thrive. All right? All right. Let's see what special education is also not. All right. It is not, special education is not a substitute for effort. So you cannot just say, hey, I want my child in special education. I'm going to put them in there because I don't know what else to do, and I'm going to just let the school handle it. No, no, no. You need to be aware that when you put them in special education, it means now we have paperwork we're going to have to monitor. We have accommodations and modifications that we agreed to in the meeting that needs to be monitored. You're going to have to monitor their work at home so that you can communicate with the school later, which is something we should do anyway, but even more so when your child is in special education, right? Every test you're like, okay, well, what accommodations were put in place? Well, how can I help my child at home? You really need to be engaged. It is not a substitute for effort. It does not mean that the child gets a pass. And I'm gonna tell you, even as a teacher, um and as an administrator, listen, I used to have meetings with my sped parents, right? And I used to let them know the standard is still grade level. You do not get a pass. You don't get to perform below grade level. Everyone is striving to be on grade level. What we are going to do is make sure we give everything but we're going to throw everything in the bucket at your child to make sure your child is successful. But when they're in special education, it means we have identified a specific problem and they are going to have to put forth that effort. You may not do as many problems as everybody else, but you still have to get the problems you do right. Does that make sense? I hope this is making sense to some of you guys, okay? So it does, you might, the class may have 10 problems. You may have where a modification is made that you only have to do 5. You still got to get 5 right, and it will be graded. You don't get a high grade just because you're in special education, guys. Come on. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you. You will work harder. And I probably should have said, you will work more. Okay. You will put more work in when you are in this program. Okay. And I know some special education teachers might be watching. They're probably so excited today. Okay. Because they've been wanting to tell you, they just didn't know how. Your child still has to perform at grade level, even though they are in this program. Okay. Or I'll say this, they have to meet the expectation of the IEP that you put together, or the ARD that you put together, right? So the individual education plan that you put together during the IEP meeting or ARD, they have to meet those expectations. They need to. Okay. And don't leave your children in there forever if you don't have to. Okay. Exit those babies out. Okay. They don't have to stay in there forever. Okay. Some of us are freeloading. You don't want to sit down and read with these babies, but you're going to have to. Okay. So that they can improve in reading. All right. It is not a substitute for personality tolerance. So that was the best way that I could phrase this, but this is what I mean by that. All right, what I mean by that is this. Special education is not a substitute for personality conflict or personality tolerance, meaning that sometimes the teacher and the student may just have a conflict. Maybe, have you ever seen where your child may be in one teacher's class and they just don't get it, right? But the next year they're in another teacher's class and it's like the light bulb turned on and they just get it. And you're like, I thought something was wrong with my child. Well, sometimes it's personality conflict going on there. Your child is still a human being, and children do have personalities. And our job is to groom those personalities, not make their personality conducive to mine. Like, no, you need to allow them to grow in their personality, but also recognize that sometimes some teachers and students, it's like this. I've seen it several times, right? It doesn't happen all the time, because usually teachers know how to curtail these things, but you may be in a class where the teacher is brand new and they're learning how to do that. Well, it doesn't mean that because our personalities conflict that the child can't learn. It means they can't learn from that particular person, but they can learn. So in these instances, before I place them in special education, I would suggest maybe having an outside tutor, really working with your child to help them understand, because just follow the directions and let's get out of the class. But you can also explore, like sit down and talk to the administrative staff and say, hey, you know what, I'm not trying to, give my child a pass or anything like that, but it just seems like the personalities are just not meshing. And before I commit to putting my child in a special education program, I would like to see if they would respond better with another teacher. Okay. Don't just throw your kids in special education, guys. All right. Okay. Let's go. Special education is not a substitute for classroom management. Now, that's more so on our end, right? I just wanted to bring it to your attention because I want you to be aware that sometimes it could be a new teacher. It could be a teacher that is just they're not masterful, or they have not yet mastered classroom management. So, in this instance, I would go visit the class. Let's see how the class runs. most schools have no issues with you coming to visit the class. Let's see, is it my child or is it the management of the class? Okay, before you say my child has a behavioral issue, let's first see if the classroom management is right. Okay, are they spoken to sarcastically constantly? I mean, I'm just saying, just any regular human being would get sick of that. And maybe that's why the child is acting out, because they're tired of being spoken to in that manner, you know? Um, are there clear classroom procedures and expectations taking place within the class? Is it organized chaos? Because just because they're sitting in rows and quiet doesn't mean learning is happening. So they may be interacting with each other and it may be a loud classroom, but even sometimes teachers have loud classrooms and the students are still learning. So when I say, is it organized chaos? That's what I mean. Okay. Or is it just chaos? Okay. And there are heightened opportunities or more opportunities for my child to get involved in mischief, right? So you want to make sure that there's classroom management going on, okay? And that your child is not being referred because the teacher can't control their class. Now, most teachers can. I'm not, this is what I do. But sometimes you'll have a new teacher and they're learning to do that and they're just trying to manage. In that case, you need to develop a stronger partnership with that teacher so that your child does not get caught up in the calamity, right? Or as a casualty. All right. Special education is not a substitute for instructional competence. Okay. So that's also on our end, right? So you want to make sure that the teacher is the master of their content. And again, you can also see that by going to visit the class, you know, to get the teacher to really explain what is the end result here. Where are we trying to go? What are you expecting from my child and how can I help you? Notice I did not have an attitude in any of the slides, okay? And if you need help with that, I've already done a presentation on parent teacher communication and you need to go watch that video. It is in our group, Parents on Point, okay? So you can go watch that because it doesn't take all of that. You just need to communicate effectively, and sometimes that can be done by asking the right questions. So I have a list of questions for you in that training. All right. It is not a substitute for cultural literacy. Okay, that's the best way that I could organize that as well, or the best way that I could communicate this as well. That means, and it could be anything. Okay. So it's not just race, which I know when we say cultural literacy, we immediately think about race. So, yes, it could be that the teacher that is teaching is not used to interacting with the students that they are currently teaching. It could be that. Okay. It could be. But it could also mean that you were in a school that had low expectations and now you're in a school that has higher expectations and you got to rise to the occasion, so the culture of one school was kind of, low. They didn't really expect much. You move to the culture of another school and their culture expects a lot. So sometimes it is just that culturally you need to become aware of what is expected here. And same question, sit down with the teacher and ask, what is the end result? Where are you trying to go? And how can I help? How can I help? Okay. But it does not mean because we are culturally, we don't understand a culture. And so now we diagnose it as a behavioral issue. That's no. Or we don't understand how to interact with a culture, so they must have a learning disability because I'm such a great teacher, so they must have a learning disability. No, it doesn't work that way. Or from the parent's perspective, I was really smart in school, so my child must have a learning disability because I never had those issues. No, it has nothing to do with that. What is needed in these cases is you need to take a deep breath and just figure out what exactly is going on, right? Figure out what's going on. Okay. So it is not a substitute for cultural literacy. You have to make sure that everyone is aware of whatever the expectation is for each person, that the teacher is aware of what the expectation is for your child, what you're expecting, and also that you're in full understanding of what the teacher is expecting you to do. And then that way you can make sure you are helping them appropriately at home. Okay. But don't just throw them in special education because you're no, that's not how this works. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Again, join our Parents on Point. I am looking through this thread to see if there are any questions, and I don't see any questions. But if you do have any questions, go ahead and type it in for me really quickly. Um, but thank you for joining us. Parents on Point is available for you. We were just speaking the other day, as I discussed in our live previously, and I had a parent to ask me about, you know, their child had a 504, and they were sharing with me that they also have an attention ADHD, I think they had. And so immediately I knew that child is creative. And that is why the issues that that particular parent was having, that's why they're having them. And I was able to give her guidance, give the parent guidance on what her next step should be and how she should handle it. You know, for her, I mentioned that environment was important, and it is important, guys. Today I talked about special education because I see so many misdiagnosed and so many they're not diagnosed at all, right? So I want to make sure that you are able to maximize your child's success. All right. And so I create documents for you, I create videos for you. You will be able to access any of these lives that I do. They will be uploaded in our Parents on Point. So, and I don't have them anywhere else. So they'll be uploaded on our Parents on Point. You can get questions answered in there. So if you have any specific questions, you can ask those questions. You can get guidance and you can have access to other resources. Okay. So if you have not joined already, get on at Parents on Point so that we can help you. Okay. All right. I see that we do not have any questions. So I am excited and I really thank you for tuning in today. My name is Dr. Deidre Stevens. My information is listed on this particular slide. Feel free to contact me for any questions that you may have. I really appreciate you guys joining in today. And bye. I'll see you next week. Oh, next week we'll be talking about advanced academics. That's for everybody. So don't think that just because your child, I don't know, maybe they learn differently or something, it does not mean that they cannot be a part of advanced academics. So we're going to talk about opportunities that are available for you within public schools for advanced academics, right? That's what we're going to talk about next week. So make sure you tune in next Saturday and I'm going to go over all of those things, okay? All right, you guys have been amazing. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I am going to end this meeting. Bye, guys. Have a great day.